The year was 1987, and a young cheap audio man had gotten his first CD, which is In Excess Kick, because he got his first CD player that year too. I had put together an incredible system, in my opinion, at 11 years old. And little did I know that that would begin my journey into what I do today. But along the way, as I've gotten older, as I've gotten wiser, kind of, I recognize that there are some audiophile traps that we all fall into, and we don't need to. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, maybe through your new cheap Audio Man Rocktopus coffee mug, and let's talk about some audiophile traps, how to avoid them, and sometimes when they're not traps. Balanced connections, balanced cables. Now, I put an asterisk on this one because sometimes you may want some balanced cables, but I was convinced that I needed to have balanced connections on everything. And I still use balanced cables on a lot of things, but it's because I like the way they connect more than anything else. It's a lot easier to clicky this than an RCA cable in the back. Plus they have a solid connection. However, balanced cables are used all the time in pro audio, especially in performances, because, well, you have to have sometimes 100 to 300 feet of cable runs. And the reason why they do that is because balanced has two signals 180 degrees from each other and then a ground line. So when you have two signals, it cancels out any noise that's introduced. However, in a hi-fi system, you have a very short run. The other reason why a lot of people like balanced cables is because you get twice the voltage. If line level is 2 volts, then you get 4 volts with balanced connections. And sometimes, maybe on a headphone rig or something else that has low gain, having that extra voltage helps bring up the gain. But the trap that I fell into was thinking that I needed balanced on everything. So I needed a new preamp that had balanced. I needed a new amplifier that had balanced. I needed a new headphone amplifier. I needed to buy that new balanced headphone cable that's $100 for my headphones. After doing this for 4 years, using balanced and unbalanced, there are very few situations where I could actually hear the difference. And when I could hear the difference, it was marginal at best. So, don't fall into the balance trap. You don't need it, but if you like it, it's okay. The contempt prior to investigation trap. This one is a big one because in all hobbies, I guess we have tribes, and there's definitely some tribes within the audiophile hobby. Measurement people, non-measurement people. You gotta buy expensive stuff. You don't have to, cheap stuff. You can buy cheap stuff. Cables don't matter. Cables do matter. A lot of times I see comments in my comments section that completely dismisses something that I'm talking about. Whether it be a cheap amplifier that doesn't even cost $100, whether it be a cable, whether it be a power cord, a linear power supply, USB cables, a speaker that doesn't measure well. And guess what? If you don't have experience with that and you don't go into that experience with an open mind, a lot of times people just dismiss an entire category of audiophile products that could bring you joy or keep money in your pocket or on your credit card that you would have otherwise have spent. Cheap amps, especially cheap Class D amps, are the one that I see most often denigrated. And most of the time, people haven't even tried one out. So, before we practice contempt prior to investigation, give it a try. You never know. Or if you don't want to give it a try, just be quiet about it. Don't shame other people for their choices. You need something new. I am guilty of this trap, falling into this like quicksand. You know what's funny about like 80s television shows and movies is quicksand. I thought as I grew up and became an adult, I thought quicksand was going to be way more of a deal than it actually is. But most of our favorite television and movie stars on the big screen had issues with quicksand, especially in the 80s. What was I talking about? Always thinking that you need something new. And I'm very guilty of that because I'm just as much a gearhead as I am an audiophile. And that applies to really everything. Watches, camera stuff, cars. Even though I am really paring things down. What I mean is, you get a new pair of speakers, you get them home, and then you're thinking about, I really need a new DAC because of this. Or I really need another pair of speakers because this pair of speakers is warm or really detailed on top. I probably need some warm speakers too. Now, I have said in the past that the best $1,000 pair of speakers is two $500 pairs of speakers that sound different. I still stick to that because then you do get different sonic characteristics. And you can pull those out and put them up, especially the bookshelf speakers, every few months or so. But what I'm talking about is you get the DAC, you listen to the DAC, and then you're thinking, oh my goodness, there's probably something better out there. There's probably something I should have spent my money on. It's the constant, continuous gear acquisition syndrome. It's the constant chasing of the audiophile dragon. Guess what? We're never going to catch the dragon. It's like trying to catch your shadow. There will always be something better, or at least there will always be something that we think is better and is going to give us that audiophile nirvana. But you don't need to, because most of the people that are watching this video already have a system, and if you have a system, it's probably much better than you think it is. And at one point, just think, has this system brought me joy? Does it change me emotionally? And if the answer is yes, then you don't need anything else right now. Maybe wait 6 months. If you spend more, you get more. Now this one has some truth to it, but I think it only really has truth to it up to a certain price point. In most cases, it's kind of a losing proposition with a few caveats. I think most Class AB amplifiers coming from reputable manufacturers up to about $1,000, I think you do get scale as you go up. And you may only get scale in the amount of power you're getting, not necessarily the sonic characteristics, but there is a point of diminishing returns, with the exception of maybe completely separated channels, like one power supply for each channel. I think there's benefit in that because you do cut down on crosstalk. But it's basically thinking if I spend $1,000 on this DAC and there's this other DAC out there for $2,000, it's got to be better, right? Well, the more I've gotten to know the industry, sometimes that chassis is just a little bit fancier. Sometimes the knobs are a little bit prettier. And while I do think how a product looks does affect how it sounds, or at least how we experience the sound, there's no guarantee that a more expensive product is going to sound or give us more joy. If it looks better, you like blue meters, and it has blue meters, then yeah, go get it, because it is going to bring you joy. But if you get the latest SMSL DAC for $250 and there's another one for $1,000, in my experience, the $1,000 DAC, number one, may not even sound as good as the $250 DAC. Number two, if it does sound better, it's going to be marginal at best. Don't fall into the trap of spending more equals more better music sound. If you're new here just finding the channel, or if you've been watching for a long time and you haven't subscribed, 60% of you watching haven't subscribed. That's crazy. You can subscribe, it's just right down there. Just click on the button. If you don't like me after a few videos, which probably is gonna happen, you can always unsubscribe later. Please like this video too. Thanks so much for watching. You need room treatment. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. In a perfect world, we could all treat a room and it would be better. I get it. Room treatment, acoustic treatment does make a difference, but not all of us have that option. Not all of us have the budget to buy a bunch of room treatment. And the thing about room treatment is once you start, it's never enough. You just keep treating that room. Oh, we have another reflection here. Oh, I need to do the ceiling. Oh, I need bass traps. I need to do it all. That's another dragon that continues to be chased. If you can do a little bit of room treatment, that's great. But if you can't, don't feel like you need to, because it may be, ignorance might be bliss when it comes to room treatment. If it sounds good and you don't have a treated room, be careful. Be careful what you wish for. You might have a bunch of stuff hanging on the wall, hanging on the ceiling, and then boom, divorce. This one has better specifications than this one. It's gotta be better, right? Sometimes. I just did a speaker comparison, and one of the speakers had a stated sensitivity of 87 dB, while the other speaker I compared it to had a stated sensitivity of 85 dB. Well, the 87 dB speaker should have played louder, but guess what? It didn't. So, not all the specifications we're reading are accurate. And making a decision based purely on specifications, I think, is a mistake. Because you could have one amplifier over here, just pretend there's an amplifier here. They both have the same power specifications, but all amplifiers sound different. I know, crazy. They have different analog output stages, maybe different op amps in them, maybe different transistors. All of those things can affect the sound. So when you're shopping, when you're looking at new gear, take the specifications with a grain of salt. I know if you can't audition both of those products, that can be a bit challenging. And I know sometimes watching a bunch of YouTubers drone on and on about products can be a little bit challenging. What I'm saying is, when you're researching a product, when you're looking at measurements, I don't want to start the whole measurement like battle, but when you're looking at measurements, it doesn't tell the whole story. Just because one has a better THD, just because one has a better signal to noise ratio, just because one has more power than the other one, it doesn't mean it's going to be the best product for you. So get into some of the forums, watch some YouTube videos. Actually, if you want to get into the best audiophile community in the world, it's my Patreon community. We do patron-only Zooms, we have a Discord server, we have a Facebook group, we have all sorts of stuff. Also, I just opened up memberships here. So if you sign up for a membership on my channel, you're gonna get 1 or 2 videos a week, kind of behind the scenes videos. What goes on at Cheap Audio Man Studios? When I say Cheap Audio Man Studios, I mean my office in my house. So my staff will put together a couple of unfiltered, unedited, unscripted videos. And when I say my staff, I mean me. You'll also get cool, maybe emoji things. So if you're on a live stream, everybody will know that you're a member. And membership has its advantages. You need a big floor standing speaker to fill up that room with sound. No, you don't. I have a big living room, and I find that the speakers, the ones that I enjoy the most, are almost invariably bookshelf speakers with a subwoofer, because then I can balance the bass in my room to the speaker itself. If you have a giant floor standing speaker, then you can't really affect the bass at all unless you have some type of DSP going on. So oftentimes you spend less by getting a pair of really good bookshelf speakers and buying a decent high value subwoofer than you would with giant floor standing speakers. And while there is no replacement for displacement, I get huge sound out of even small bookshelf speakers in my living room. And I also get the added benefit of being able to fine tune the bottom end of my system with the subwoofer. So next time you're speaker shopping and you think, I need the towers. No, you don't. You don't need the towers, but you can still get the towers if you want to, sometime. If you're setting up a home theater system, you need the rear channels to match your front channels. You need the same speaker line. No, you don't. Anything that's coming out of your rear speakers is going to be limited as far as the amount of information. Even if you're listening to music, there is limited information coming out of the rear surround speakers, or the height speakers, or the side speakers. The only ones that I think you probably should match are the center speaker and the left and the right speaker. But even then you don't need to do that, because I've had a lot of systems that have cobbled together over the years, and there's only been 1 or 2 instances when I've really heard a difference between having a center speaker from Klipsch versus having Polk left and right speakers. Only a couple of instances. So you can get away with mixing and matching your speakers, especially the rear speakers, but even the front speakers. I hope you liked today's video. If you like this video and you're on a budget, then you may want to check out my video about putting together a great system for under $350. I will link that right here, because you'd be surprised how much enjoyment you can get on a budget. Also, we have a limited amount of this new Cheap Audio Man special silk screened Rocktopus t-shirt. Yay! It says binge listen and fill your soul with happiness around it. Very nice. I'm handling all my merch in-house now because the print on demand merch was terrible. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen and stay out of those audiophile traps like quicksand and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.